Good evening and welcome to tonight's forum for the 2015 candidates for the Chapel Hill-Carrboro Board of Education. I'm Sharon Kepschel-Barrett with the Chapel Hill-Carrboro PTA Council, which is sponsoring this forum with the Chapel Hill-Carrboro NAACP, the Special Needs Advisory Council, or SNAC, and 97.9 WCHL. I'd like to offer a special thanks to Sarah Silverstein from the PTA Council, Barbara Fouchie and Greg McElveen of the NAACP, Amy Fowler of SNAC, and Blake Hodge from WCHL for all their work coordinating tonight's forum. Our groups worked together to select tonight's questions, which are based in part on questions that were submitted online from the community. Audience members can also submit questions tonight on your written index cards, which we will collect just after 8 o'clock, and we'll select several of those to ask in the second half. Tonight's forum is being broadcast live on WCHL, and we will post the video of this online. Check the PTA Council website for a link to the video, along with the printed materials from tonight, which include the questions and candidate statements. And now Barbara Fouchie from the NAACP will introduce our moderator.
Good evening. I'd like to introduce tonight's moderator, Steve Drake. Mr. Drake is an attorney with the Maitland Law Firm, member of the Sewell School Improvement Team, and parent of 2 students in the district. He moved here several years ago from Chicago, where he represented the interests of young people, seniors, and disabled adults, and was associate director of an educational nonprofit focused on young people in the Chicago public schools. He is a member of First Baptist Church of Chapel Hill, the My Brother's Keeper Initiative of Chapel Hill and Orange County, and a board member for the Hannah Ruth Foundation. I give you Steve Drake.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. It's an honor and a pleasure to be here. It's also an honor and a pleasure to be a part of this process, to be part of the process of electing what I think is one of the most important offices in our city, and that's the Board of Elections. Most important, thank you for coming. You could be a lot of different places, doing a lot of different things, but thank you for coming and participating and attending this evening. Housekeeping rules, these are very important. Housekeeping rules, we have 8 candidates for 4 seats. So the time is going to be very tight, but we're going to have a free-flowing conversation, and we're going to keep it moving. We've broken up the question tonight as follows. 5 candidates will answer each question. The first 2 candidates will have 75 seconds to speak, and the remaining 3 will have 40 seconds to speak. Additionally, the candidates will have 30 seconds to use when they would like to speak on a question not directed at them, either on 2 questions for 15 seconds apiece or one 30-second question. We also have, to make it interesting, we have a few short answer questions directed at all the candidates. The forum runs until 9 p.m. 9 p.m., so it must end promptly. Because of that, because of broadcasting rules, we want to make sure that we give everyone an opportunity to speak and cover as many topics as possible. Thus, there will be somebody giving you a stern look. That somebody's not me. Somebody giving you a stern look when you start to run over time, and will give you a really stern look when you run over time. I don't know how that system's going to work with buzzers and beeps, but you will get the stern look and buzzers and beeps. So, with that being said, let's get started. Ready? All right. First, to all of the candidates, please take 30 seconds to very briefly tell us if and how you have been involved with each of the groups here this evening. PTA Council, NAACP, and SNAC. First, Ms. Brown.
I'm a member of the NAACP. I'm also a member of the Education Committee. And I'm a member of the PTA, not the PTA Council, but the PTA at Chapel Hill High School.
Ronnie Dazzi.
Thank you for having me. I am also a member of the NAACP and the Education Committee. I have been involved in the PTA at Frank Porter Graham and Sewell Elementary, Chapel Hill High, and Smith Middle School. I've attended SNAC meetings to learn more about the issues related to the exceptional children and continue to try to learn more about those things that I'm not as familiar with.
And Greg Godot.
All right, thank you for having us this evening. I'm not a member of any of the committees that you mentioned, but I'm looking forward to participating in more. I am a parent at 2 high schools.
Thank you. Pat Heinrich.
Yes, I've attended a meeting of the NAACP and spent a couple hours speaking with its leadership. I'm not a member of the other committees.
Thank you. Margaret Samuels.
Yes, I was PTA Council President from 2011 to 2013, and I worked with the NAACP and SNAC, coordinating the candidate forums in 2011 and 2013, not this year. And I listened to WCHL.
David Saucy.
Thank you. My wife is a member of the PTA Council, and so I am involved in that peripherally through her involvement in that council. I am not a member of the NAACP, but I have had conversations with some of the members of the NAACP. I have not been directly involved in SNAC, but have been peripherally involved in working with some parents who are on SNAC on issues that they have.
Ms. Annetta Streeter.
Good evening. I have previously been a member of the NAACP. I have participated in PTA activities through membership and volunteer activities at both Culbreth and Frank Porter Graham. And I have previously served as the board liaison to the SNAC and have attended meetings.
Teresa Watson.
Hi, I'm Teresa Watson. I am a member of the NAACP. I have been on the PTA and have been in a leadership position at Frank Porter Graham, MacDougall, Chapel Hill High. And I am not involved with SNAC, but I have had a kid with special needs.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, on to our first question. Thank you for all of your responses. Our first question will go to Ms. Brown and Ms. Dodzy for 75 seconds each. Then to Mr. Gardeau and Mr. Heinrich and Ms. Samuels for 40 seconds each. Name one recent board decision you disagree with and explain why.
I think one of the disagreements I had with the board is the lack of following those students that were moved from Frank Porter Graham to the other elementary schools. I supported the magnet school concept, but I think they really needed to follow those students to ensure that they were getting their needs met once they've been moved.
Thank you.
The one issue that I have disagreed with recently was the continuation of funding on the Mandarin program. I believe language is very important, and if we had an unlimited budget, I would certainly support Mandarin. When I wanted my children to learn Chinese, I sent them to Chinese school, which I paid for. A guiding principle of a public school has to be focus on instruction programs that benefit the most children, and so that was one that didn't seem consistent with that principle.
One decision that I completely disagreed with was Saturday school for weather makeup. Saturday school, while it might have been an opportunity, was not the best opportunity or the best choice that we could have made, and I think we could have done a lot better and continued the educational process rather than counted a day as a statistic, which is all that seemed to have occurred by using Saturdays.
Thank you.
Yeah, one thing that I disagree with is the formation of a MOU or Memorandum of Understanding, or that process is ongoing, around the role of SROs in our schools. I think that should be a policy, as a Memorandum of Understanding is not a contractual document. It is not a policy document. No one is actually bound by it. It merely shows an intent, but there is no enforcement behind it. I would like that to be a policy.
I think one decision that I disagreed with this year for the board was the approach to the budget with the county commissioners. I believe the county commissioners are looking for more transparency from our school board in the way that we are utilizing the money that we are granted from our county.
Thank you. Question number 2. Our next question will go to Mr. Saucy, Ms. Streeter for 75 seconds each. What are some key features you would like to see incorporated in Superintendent Forcella's Project Advance model that could help us establish a greater sense of focused empowerment and accountability among leaders, staff, and teachers to achieve student learning and growth objectives?
So So I believe that we should link professional growth for all district staff, both the leaders and staff in the district offices and the in-building leaders such as principals and assistant principals, other staff in the schools, in addition to the teachers, that we should link their professional growth and their career development to the achievement of the goals of the administration.
Thank you. Ms. Streeter.
Thank you. Key features that I look forward to incorporating into the Project Advance model are extensive training around what is expected of all teachers and staff and administrators, and assurance that each teacher will have a mentor who will be available for coaching as well as advisement. Also, a scheduled professional development plan that all those who are stakeholders in that process will be fully aware of and engaged in.
Thank you. And Ms. Watson.
Yes, I have not completely finished reading the Project Advance, but I will say that it has some key components that are very strong in determining provisions for the grandfather, for the existing teachers, how they would be migrated into this new system and this new platform is a very key component for me.
Thank you. Ms. Brown.
I would like to see better and more specific timelines when the implementation of all the steps are going to be taken. I think if you're a parent, you don't know exactly when all of this is going to be implemented. And I think it would be more helpful and you could get more community support if you knew when it was going to be implemented. And also you need guidelines to make sure that the implementation is actually effective.
And Ms. Dazzi.
I think it'll be really important to have some metrics to understand the success of the project. We need to be doing cycle loops to understand where we've made progress and where we need to make adjustments, and then how we continue to improve that.
Thank you. The next question goes to Mr. Gardeau and Mr. Heinrich for 75 seconds. Many students with diagnoses such as attention disorders and learning disabilities are denied IEPs and even 504s unless they're performing below grade level. What should the district do, if anything, to address this?
First of all, every child should be allowed to compete and learn at his own level. If we're holding kids back because they have a disability or they have a learning problem, and they're struggling and making it at grade level, and we're not giving them additional assistance, what are we doing? We're holding them back. It's unfair. We should change that.
Thank you.
Yeah, I believe that performance at grade level is not a proxy for whether our children need help when they're diagnosed with a disability. I think that doing that denies those children the expectation of high performance or a high expectation of their performance, because they may be using their resources in their selves to surmount their disability or their issue, and they're not able to use that to perform at the level that they could perform. I believe that they need the support to be able to excel as they are able.
Thank you, Mr. Heinrich. And Ms. Samuels.
Yes, thank you, sorry. This is a situation we see a lot of in our district. It's devastating for families. The notion of academic impact needs to change. We need to have responsive intervention. We need to stop wasting time before real testing for LD. We need to make sure that we have scaffolding around this issue, and we need to make sure that we continue to teach at grade level for students.
Ms. Streeter.
There are specific laws and criteria that have to be followed in terms of determining whether children qualify for additional services. The district wants to be compliant on those issues. At the same time, I do know that our teachers still have the responsibility of working with families and working with children. So if there are needs that present, that should not prevent a teacher or other resources in the building from developing a plan to help support the child. It may not be a plan named as an IEP or a 504, but if there are needs, there comes the time to speak to the parents and develop a plan.
Thank you. The next question will go to all candidates in reverse order, starting with Ms. Watson. We're going to ask just one-word answers, just a number. For candidates not on the board now, how many board meetings have you attended in 2015? For candidates on the board, how many non-board meetings related to schools have you attended? Ms. Watson going first. Yes.
4.
Ms. Streeter.
12.
Mr. Saucy.
10.
Ms. Samuels.
8.
In person, none.
Thank you. Mr. Gardeau.
In person, none. I believe the number's 5.
Ms. Dazzi.
10.
Ms. Brown.
4.
Thank you. The next question goes first to Ms. Watson, then Ms. Brown for 75 seconds. Name 3 district programs that are optional, i.e. not required by law, that you would prioritize for continuing to fund in these tight budget times, and briefly say why. Ms. Watson.
Avid, I would support Avid, and there's a program throughout our system called Wildeye, and we have a mentorship program in the district. And the reason why I would support Avid actually prepare the students for school, for college, and they do a good job making sure that they stay on track. And while I tend to get the students and they work together as a unit, they do community service and they bring other components outside of education into the child's life. And that's very crucial for development because I believe strongly in experience and exposure for children. And while I actually gives the kids both of those all during the school year, even when school is not in session. And the mentorship, it was run once by Greg Myers, and that mentorship pairs up parents, citizens in our community with students, and they mentor that students throughout the year. And the advantage to that is that in the 3rd grade, if they start in the 3rd grade and go out to the 12th, they get their college tuition paid. There's just true advantage for those 3 programs, and those are 3, Avid, Wildeye, and our mentorship.
Thank you, Ms. Watson. Ms. Brown.
The first one would be Avid, because of its work to get students into accelerated classes and AP classes. And for the reason that it seems to appear that is probably the best at the moment that works to get students of color into those classes. I would continue to support Wildeye because it provides experiences for students to travel and to also continue and to have experiences with public service and to develop leadership in different parts of the community. And I guess the final one that I would select, although it is somewhat required but not quite required enough, is the continued funding for school nurses, which seems to be continued to be at risk in this state.
Thank you. Ms. Dazzi.
I would certainly support the Spanish dual language program as it works to help those children who have historically been undereducated. I would also support the Blue Ribbon Mentor Program, and the principle of my choices are around improving educational outcomes, and these are programs that are fairly research-based that support improving educational outcomes.
I certainly support AVID. I believe that that's one of the most important programs that we have for all kids. The second is that I believe that the school nurse program is essential, and we probably don't do as much with that program as we could. I'm concerned that it will go away. The third is that I think we have to get more involved as parents and as a district with the Blue Ribbon Mentor Program, perhaps even replacing it with one that's more effective.
Thank you.
Okay.
Mr. Henry.
Yeah, I'm a big proponent of the AVID program as well for reasons that were already mentioned. Additionally, the dual language programs, because I believe that they give a helping hand to some of the children in our district that whose first language is not English. And I would also support the Director of Equity. We're only one of 3 school systems in North Carolina with a Director of Equity. I think that that's something that can touch all of the students in our district and also make an impact on the environment that our children come into as they learn in our schools.
Thank you, sir. The next question goes to Ms. Samuels, then to Mr. Saucy for 75 seconds. North Carolina standards state that schools should establish respectful and effective environments for diverse populations of students. To help achieve this, would it be appropriate to provide more information to students and teachers about how our society has been impacted by historical differences in privileges and resources and biases and cultures across racial and ethnic groups?
Thank
A
you.
mouthful. Go ahead.
Yes, I have taken courses such as these, and that's how we can begin to understand where we are, the situations that we're in. This can link up with Project Advance and be a part of professional learning for our staff, for our teachers, for our district. I think events like the joint event that was held a few weeks ago with the NAACP, the PTA Council, the Multicultural Student Network can assist our district in learning some of what we need to learn around these areas and can help each parent, student, teacher, and staff member begin to understand the historical background of some of these issues.
Thank you. Mr. Saucy.
Absolutely. I believe that the first thing we need to do is ensure that all of our teachers and staff, including staff at the district level, have an accurate understanding of the historical bases for bias and racism in the United States and the impact of that bias. And I think it's very important that that be historically accurate, not necessarily what we all learned or what many of us learned growing up. And I think that this needs to extend into education of our students, and we need to ensure that education, particularly, for example, history, civic, social studies, are historically accurate, and that we're teaching our children an understanding of the history, particularly of the United States and the rest of the world, but particularly the United States, how we got to where we are, why we're here now, and the impact of cultural biases and racism on society and how that's holding us back.
Thank you. Ms. Streeter.
Yes, I do believe in increasing and expanding our opportunities to train students, staff, and community members around multicultural competency. There are many opportunities that we can take advantage of inside the school. It could be units of instruction that invite experts into the classroom. It could be opportunities that include field trips, even web-based field trips for students to learn more about those experiences. We have a plethora of resources in the community. I would just ask, and I'm sure our district would require, that the opportunities be curriculum-based and appropriate and age-appropriate.
Thank you. Ms. Watson.
I would say yes, with the, but when you're dealing with issues as it relates to some of our kids not being able at the, sorry, sort of got off track, being biased. I've attended a race relation workshop, and if you don't, you will not have appreciation for other race, other culture, unless you understand what it is. So I really do promote that you being able to share that information and get exposure to that information, the teachers and the students as well. And it also would improve our race relation in our community.
Thank you. Thank you. Ms. Brown.
I am very much supportive of such endeavors. In fact, and I think that you can craft curriculum at every level to ensure that everyone understands how wonderful and diverse our community is, and also how wonderful and diverse our state is and our nation is. And I would be very supportive of using those. And I think you can use curriculum to do so.
Very much. The next question goes to Ms. Dazi and Ms. Gardeau for 75 seconds. One of the biggest issues facing special education is the dismally low number of high school special education graduates who go on to further education, employment, independent living. What should the district do to help these students transition into independent life? Ms. Dazi.
So I think one of the things we need to understand is what are the barriers that prevent them from moving into careers or other types of work that they might be interested in doing. Also, I think the board and the district can partner with community groups who understand where and how these groups can be successful and make sure that we are doing everything we can as a school board, school district to support those efforts. I also think it would be interesting to evaluate what other districts are doing and maybe bring some of those learnings here into Chapel Hill-Carrboro City Schools.
Thank you. Mr. Gardo?
As we've done with Project Advance, we need to take a leadership position on this and establish a transition program in conjunction with other community and state programs that will give these kids a chance to have a relatively normal and easier life. We could be a leader in this, and I think that that's a position that we should take as a board.
Thank you very much. Mr. Heinrich, 40 seconds.
Yeah, we work hard to provide resources. I mean, our teachers work hard. We provide resources in our schools to help our special education graduates be successful in our schools. Could we do that better? Certainly we could, but we invest a lot of effort, and and I think that our students should be very proud of what they achieve in our schools. I think that what's not happening is when they make the transition from the schools, a lot of the resources that may have been available to them in the schools are no longer available to them in the community. I feel that we need to work with community organizations and also work with our local government partners to help smooth that transition and ensure that those resources are available so that these people can be successful as they go on with their lives.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Samuels?
Looking at our OCS and certificate students and that programming, ensuring that we're following all the new federal rules and VIAWA rules, and also expanding the PATHS program, which is a collaboration with UNC for students in their final year to have internships, on-the-job coaching and mentoring, collaborations with community agencies like Voc Rehab and Cardinal, which can provide money for innovative programs like paths and different programs after students are out of school, making sure that we have a strong mentoring program for students, and ensuring that we have collaborations with local community colleges and universities to ensure that we can make that transition for students.
Thank you. Mr. Saucy?
So I think for all students, but particularly for these students, we need to pay close attention to their transition out of school after graduation, and need to ensure that we have additional efforts in place to engage others in the community in helping these students to transition out starting in their junior or senior year in high school, provide adequate mentoring, provide the students and their families with assistance in making connection to local and district and state and regional resources to help them find appropriate further additional training, further education, and jobs.
Thank you very much. Before we get to the next question, I believe the audience is going to have an opportunity to write questions and provide them to some of the representatives. We can start that process now. I'm not sure if you have pencil and paper, but we can start that process now and provide it to the representatives at the end of the room. Thank you. Next question goes to Ms. Dazi and Mr. Gardo for 75 seconds. I'm sorry, let me repeat that. This question goes to all of the candidates, beginning with Mr. Heinrich. Please answer just with a yes or no. In the current way budgets are shown, it can be hard to figure out how much is spent on specific programs. Do you support reporting budget items by program as well as function?
Yes, I do.
Thank you. Mr. Gardo?
Yes, I do, but I also think that you're talking about expense and budget at the same time. We need to see expense, make sure that the money that we're allocating is actually being spent.
Fair enough. Thank you. Mr. Dazi?
You should get closer to that mic.
I will get closer to the mic. Thank you.
I think he's talking about me. Am I close enough?
I usually get them to give a yes or no. All right. Go ahead. Repeat.
I believe that my answer is yes, and I believe that we need to see not only budget, but we need to see expense reported clearly to make sure that the money that we've allocated is being correctly spent.
And again, as yes or no, we're going to have an uprising from the back of the room. So we got to keep it to yes or no, okay? Ms. Dazi?
Yes.
Yes.
That was Mrs. Brown. And then Ms. Watson?
Yes.
Streeter?
Yes.
Yes.
Mr. Saucy?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, next question goes to Ms. Streeter first and Ms. Watson for 75 seconds. Many parents and community members seem frustrated by the board and administration's follow-through on talk of transparency, which often seems little more than a buzzword. What are some of the practical examples you would like to see of real transparency? For example, would you support putting emails that go to the board online, as town boards do? Ms. Streeter.
Thank you for the question. Regarding transparency, I do support communication with community stakeholders and families when that communication is appropriate. I do believe in engaging all stakeholders when the board is preparing to make a decision that will impact the community. That communication needs to go out early. Districts, our schools also need to make sure that from their level, they are communicating that with the community. I do not support emails being sent to the board or administrators being made public for the sake of those families who may not want that information to be broadcast to the general public. While they become public records document, at that moment, I believe that it will discourage families from reaching out to the board.
Thank you. Ms. Watson.
I think transparency is absolutely necessary. Transparency has a direct relationship with trust. And what you want to do in our school system is create trust. And so, but there are some reasons that things can't be discussed, and I do understand that. But I don't think when we are talking about transparency here, those are not the things that we're discussing. I do think our district needs to be more transparent on various issues. Now, the second part of the question, should the emails be made public or put online? I think some of the emails, but you have to use discretion on which one. People with people names and that kind of information and private information. But I think some of the things we do need to know. I think it would make us more accountable for how we respond to it, or whether we drop some issues or not.
Thank you. Ms. Brown, for 40 seconds.
Well, first, I think there needs to be greater transparency, and sometimes when you listen to the conversations about policy, it is buzzwords, and if you were just looking at it, you wouldn't understand what was going on, and the community does not understand. Additionally, I think there has to be a level of accessibility for everyone, and not feel like that the game is about inside baseball. So I do support greater transparency. With regards to the emails, when it relates to policy, I think they should be on the district website. When it relates to personnel issues and student issues, I don't think they should be on the website.
Thank you. You've given the only sports reference all night. Ms. Dodson, 40 seconds.
I think transparency works both ways, not just with community communication to the board, but backwards with the board communicating out. And I'd like to see the board have more engagement in community events. Through the campaign process, we've seen a lot of people attending events and talking to people. I think that should be a continuous process. With respect to whether information gets published, if it becomes public record, if it's appropriate, I don't see an issue with having that be public.
Thank you. Mr. Gardeau.
I would support any measure that provided more transparency into both the thinking and the actions of the board. Where I think that I fall on email is giving the sender the choice and not making it some sort of new bureaucratic process to be able to determine which is the right one to post and which is the right one to hold back. Give the sender the choice.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
The next question goes to Mr. Heinrich, Ms. Samuels for 75 seconds. It has been proposed that we set a goal of increasing by 10 to 15% percentage points per year the proportion of African-American Latino students who are at least proficient on the end of the grade and end of course test. Do you consider this a reasonable goal? And if so, what are the top 2 or 3 things you would advocate for the district to do to achieve that result?
So I do believe that is a reasonable goal, but I don't believe that is a reasonable goal if we keep doing things the way that we've done them in the past. And what I mean by that is that we've seen our achievement gap between our high performers and some of our more challenged youth to be increasing. And I think that some of the things that we can do to bring that gap down or narrow that gap is to admit that this is a complicated problem. It has been an issue that has plagued us for decades as a school system, as a community, and as a state. And if we continue to oversimplify the problem and pick 2 or 3 simple things to address it, we're not going to get to the root of it, and we're not going to close that gap. I believe that the solution lies in the entire community, not just in the schools, not just in the teachers, not just in the parents. And I believe that the board can take a leadership position in bringing together community organizations, parents, students, professional organizations, and the rest of the community to attack all the aspects of this complex problem. I think that emotions are heated around this, and I believe that we need to have a candid conversation and validate the emotions and the disappointment that's been there so that we can move forward as a community and address this issue.
Thank you, Mr. Heinrich. Ms. Samuels.
Thank you. It is reasonable. Every child can and will succeed. We must redirect resources to get students proficient. We must place measurable goals, provide the scaffolding, and ensure instructional excellence. We must have high expectations for every student. The county commissioners last year or the year before last moved money from the Social Justice Fund to provide quality childcare and to move children off of the waiting list. If we have a very good plan with measurable goals, we heard at the meeting between the 2 school districts and the county commissioners that they want us to solve this problem. We've talked about it for many years. We need to bring our community along with us. We know that our state legislature is not going to provide us the funding we need for public education. We need to make sure the county commissioners have our back. We need to come up with innovative monetary solutions and academic solutions to address the problem. But students must be proficient. We can't be a school district that doesn't have everybody reading on grade level.
Thank you very much. Mr. Saucy.
Thank you. Yes, I believe a goal like this is achievable, especially if we're talking about starting and correcting the achievement gap at an early age. But I don't believe that it's up to the schools alone to do this. It will require involvement from the community. It takes a village, sorry to borrow a cliche, what's a cliche now, but it does take a village to raise a child, and we will need a lot more input and assistance from the community to provide assistance to these students outside of the schools so that they come to school in a position to be able to learn in addition to the work that we'll have to do to once they're in the schools.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Streeter.
Thank you for the question. This goal of raising achievement by 10 to 15% is actually a benchmark for more students than I'm comfortable with already. So we have proficiency data that does show that we have students who are that far behind. So it will be required that they grow by more than a year's worth in order to meet this benchmark. How we do it is going to be primarily by effective teaching, and that effective teaching begins with very thorough lesson plans, beginning with pre-teaching and review, teaching, as well as acceleration for all of the learners, and be prepared to push in adjunct services when there are struggles.
Sorry. Thank you very much. Ms. Watson.
Well, I will not say whether I think it's realistic or not, because we have spent so much time already trying to actually close the gap, and we haven't really done that so far. And it's not like a robot, because each one of the kids that I've worked with that's not proficient, they're at very different levels. So is it 10 or 15%? Do I say it's hard to measure whether that percentage that we've not gotten to yet will actually happen. What are we going to do that's so different? So I will take a stance back and actually try to review my position at a later date.
Thank you, Ms. Watson. The next question. This question goes to Ms. Brown, Ms. Dazzi for 75 seconds. Are you aware of what the district does regarding twice exceptional students? And what are your thoughts, if any, on how to better support them? Ms. Brown.
If you're talking about twice exceptional students, What I do know, and I'll say I know very little, so this is a forum, so you need to tell that. What I do know, though, with some students who are in closed classes, that they have difficulty, the teachers and the teachers' assistants have difficulty and sometimes can't leave to assist or get a break to come in to help the students. And so I would add more resources so there would be more teachers and teachers' assistants in those closed classes.
Thank you very much. Ms. Darcy.
So for twice exceptional students, the district provides an IEP which outlines what the needs of the students are and how they will be served. On the gifted side, they will follow traditional testing or the testing that meets their needs, and that becomes part of their IEP to help assess and to determine what level of services they receive.
Mr. Gardeau for 40 seconds.
I support any program that improves the ability of a child to learn, even if they're double exceptional. I only know of one child in the district who is double exceptional, and that's the child of one of the board members. That's not an incumbent in this race. I support it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Heinrich, 40 seconds.
I believe that the testing that we do is good. I think that one of the things that I think that we could ensure that we're doing is provide a more closed loop process to support these students. We do the testing, we provide information, or we provide programs for these students, then we come back and see how effective that is, rather than just use the program and not evaluate and not see if we can be more effective for those children. I'd like to see that closed loop process go all the way around.
Thank you. Ms. Samuels.
Yes, our twice exceptional student population is severely underidentified. Symptoms are often masked. I believe in our district we need to reinforce an EC 101 class, making sure that all teachers and all staff can learn about twice exceptional students and can identify those issues and can incorporate them in identification and support.
Thank you very much. Mr. Saucy.
Yes. So I agree that the district needs to do more to ensure that it's identifying twice exceptional students, that it's appropriately identifying them and providing the support that they need. I believe the biggest thing that we can do is ensure that they have adequate support and adequate educational plans beyond just testing to ensure that twice exceptional students, like all students, can achieve the growth to which they're capable.
I gave you an extra question. That's why you gave me the look. So Mr. Saucy gets an extra point. So the next question goes back to Mr. Saucy and Ms. Streeter for 75 seconds. For Spanish and Mandarin dual language programs in the district, name one aspect you like about the programs and one you do not. Briefly explain why.
So one aspect I like about both programs is I believe that they offer opportunities to children to become, for all children in the district that have access to the program, to become better educated and more likely to be competitive in a 21st century and global environment. I think that they have additional qualities, particularly in the Spanish dual language program, but also to some extent in the Mandarin dual language program, of assisting those students whose native language is not English and whose language in the home is not English to better come up to speed in speaking English and achieve achieve what they to their greatest potential in the schools. I think one thing that I don't like about the programs is that we don't have a good long-term plan for sustainability of both programs, and that I believe it's incumbent upon the board to ensure that we do have a long-term plan for sustainability of both programs.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Streeter.
Thank you for the question. I do believe in children learning a second language. The two programs that we have in place serve several roles. Benefits for children include increased rigor. It's been proven that children who learn two languages at the same time, actually have a more robust appreciation for learning, the rigor and the questioning, allow them to be more critical thinkers. There is also the opportunity for them to learn about other cultures, so it increases their cultural competency and awareness, learning diverse languages. The third piece that I believe is important as well is that learning a second language learning two languages at the same time has also been proven to raise achievement for students who have traditionally struggled.
Thank you. Ms. Watson, 40 seconds.
40 seconds. I agree with Anita, so I'm not going to go with repeating that. I do think having the dual language is a global environment language. It strengthens the children in many ways. And the second part of this question is, what I don't agree with is, in the Chapel Hill School District, it has for many years, and when it introduces the language, a lot of times we don't have enough students participating in the various programs. So consequently, I think the way they handle that, the participation of the program, for example, we had a Japanese program and 5 students. So I think the way we handle the enrollment of the program is essential.
Thank you, Ms. Watson. Ms. Brown, 40 seconds.
I'm supportive of both programs. I would like to see them extended to other schools. I think if they were extended to other schools, you would see a greater achievement in those students who have difficulty learning. And we also already know that when you're learning two languages, it's better for you in education and for your rigor. In addition to that, I think it prepares our students better to participate in the global community.
Dazi.
I think language is very important for a lot of the reasons that have been discussed. I think as we become a more global population, it is important. One thing that I do become concerned with is affordability, and I think when we are challenged with basic teaching needs, when we don't have TAs in our class, when we don't have teaching assistants, reading coaches, it's difficult to do these things that are nice to have. In an ideal world, certainly we'd want everyone to learn multiple languages.
Thank you. This question goes to Mr. Gardeau, Mr. Heinrich for 75 seconds.
Can I use one of my 15 seconds to respond to that last question?
Sure.
Okay. I just want to add to what was said that I grew up in a dual language household and cannot understate the value of the program. One of the things that I feel we're not doing well is marketing that program. I've talked to parents who said, I don't want my children in a dual language program. It's going to make it harder for them to succeed. I think that these programs will build their confidence, build their work ethic and their study skills.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And let me go back with that rule. Some people may have come in late after I did the housekeeping rules. Each candidate will have 30 seconds to use an answer, to answer a question not directed at him or her. You may use this one time for 30 seconds or 2 15-second answers. Thank you. I lost my place. Now, let me go to the next question. To Mr. Gardeau and Mr. Heinrich for 75 seconds. What is your position on having separate honors and standard classes in all core high school subjects compared to the alternative of making rigorous, high-quality instruction for the standard for all core classes?
I'm in favor of having separate course levels. I think it also has to be coordinated with the AP classes. In this district, there's a fairly unpopular number, which is 7 AP courses. That is the minimum number any kid that gets into Carolina has to have. So with 7 AP courses and the rest of them being honors courses, that's a heavy workload for a lot of kids. Having an alternative of taking some regular level courses gives them a bit of an out, and I've seen it work quite positively.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Heinrich.
Yeah, I think that to answer this question, we need to go take a step back and go back to the principle of high expectations for all students. I think that regardless of a student's level, regardless of what course a student is in, we should set a high expectation and ask them to perform to that expectation level. I think that that generates grit, strong study skills, and a strong work ethic that is going to benefit that child as they graduate, move on to other things. And so I feel like if we look at that and use that as our guiding principle, we can better understand which levels of courses make more sense for our students.
Thank you. Ms. Samuels, 40 seconds.
Yes, thank you. We need to provide a resource-rich environment for all of our students. We need smaller class sizes, we need to ensure that we have TAs, and we need to support instructional excellence. I believe our work on Project Advance with professional development, working on lesson planning, and working on how to provide the rigorous academic standards that we need for each of our students. There's currently an AP and honors pilot program that's going on in the district at the high schools. I would like to see more programs like this so that we can ensure that all students have access to classes.
Thank you. Mr. Saucy, 40 seconds.
So I believe that that we need to do all that we can to increase the rigor of our standard classes, and hopefully the work that's being done in the district on making a comprehensive district-wide curriculum at K through 12 level will achieve that. That said, even if we increase the rigor as we should in the standard classes, I still believe that we'll need to offer separate AP and honors courses in order to ensure that we're sufficiently challenging all of the students in the district.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Streeter.
Thank you. While in my ideal world, I would like to see the district have as a baseline honors courses and no standard courses, I don't believe that that's something that can change overnight. We have had this system in place for several years now, and in order to raise the rigor even within the standard classes, there will be needed some additional training and a cultural change for all of our campuses. We did eliminate a few years ago minimum criteria and prerequisites that were creating a barrier to students being able to access high-level courses, and that's been eliminated.
Thank you very much. All right, the next question will go to all of the candidates, and you have 30 seconds each to respond. It's a heavyweight question. Take a deep breath. Many in the community complain that the board frequently seems dismissive of community concerns. Public comments seem ignored, complete with eye rolls, dismissive body language. I can't imagine that. As if board members do not want to hear from constituents or have already made up their minds. And when people bring a concern to the board in public comment, there's usually no response whatsoever. All of this can create an us versus them feeling, instead of everyone working together to solve problems. Briefly, what is your opinion of this, and how would you help change the culture of the board, starting with Ms. Samuels? Again, this is 30 seconds.
Ms. Samuel?
Ms. Samuels. Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
I guess
sorry.
I'm sorry. I was looking
no
at
problem.
Ms. Watson. I apologize. Ms. Samuels, 30 seconds.
Absolutely.
Would you like me to repeat that question?
No, that's okay. Thank you. I believe very strongly in access for all community members and parents. Our school system must be accessible to our community members, to our parents, and to those that want to give us the feedback. We must, it is the community that supports us, allows us to operate, puts us hopefully in this office. Board members need to be present. We need to be and attend meetings, put the hours in, and demand.
I'm giving you dismissive body language.
Yes, sorry.
You got to move on. Mr. Saucy.
So I definitely believe in transparency on the part of the board and the district. I think in terms of managing meetings, it is difficult, frequently difficult, and in some meetings impossible for us to respond in an orderly fashion and still finish before dawn the next day to public comment. I do know that frequently board members do follow up with individuals after public comment.
Thank you very much. Excuse me, Ms. Streeter.
The board does have a policy and protocol in place that is announced at every board meeting, so that the audience is well aware that during public comment, the board will not be responding to those comments because the board has not had an opportunity to take in that information, research it, and consider a response. It's very inappropriate to, off the cuff, respond to questions without being thoughtful about it and considering all aspects of an issue. I also believe in mutual respect, so it is a two-way.
Thank you very much. Ms. Watson.
On this question, I think the board needs to be more into our community. For many, many years here, the board has not gone into the various community. They stay really close tight to their own community. So it lends itself to other people being able to just come in and they are able to just set the pace for whatever their service or their constituents need. And we know that our community, the community that we serve. Okay.
Very much.
Can I finish my last sentence?
I don't think so. I'm going to get a
Okay.
stern look.
She was on a roll.
All right.
Can I
so,
take my 15 seconds?
You know, I don't think the rules state that. However, if with no one's looking on the next question, you can take your 15 seconds, just answer that one. How about that?
On the next question?
Yeah. Just,
And I can go back
there's
to
no,
this one?
There's no rule
Okay.
keeper here. Just anyway, I think Ms. Brown is up next, so we're going to skip to Ms. Dazzi.
So I certainly had a lot of conversations with community members, parents, teachers, and staff during my campaign, and one of the things I have heard a lot about people's frustration is feedback and communication with the board. And so one of the things that I commit to doing as a board member is being continuously engaged, attending community events, going to where the people are, not just expecting them to come to me. But what I'd also like to see is more public follow-up to commentary at the board.
Thank you very much, Mr. Gardeau.
Thank you very much. I support a lot more open access on behalf of on the part of the board, as well as on the part of the district staff. We need to open up opportunities like community forums so that we can all be heard, and we don't necessarily have to give answers as a unit, as a board, but we can go back and take the comments that we've heard from the community forums, bring them back to board meetings. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to go to Mr. Heinrich and then come back to Ms.
Thank
Brown.
you.
Yeah, I think that the board should be required, or there should be a forum where the public can give comments, but there is a requirement that the board answer or respond to those. Maybe not immediately, but at some point in the future. I also feel that the board may not feel like they have the tools to build consensus or empathize with some of the parents that oftentimes have a very good reason to be frustrated. I think that consensus training or other training could help our board. I also believe that there should be outreach metrics in the community to make sure we're reaching out to all of them.
Thank you very much, Ms. Brown.
I think the first thing you need to understand, if you're elected to the Board of Education, that you are a public servant and you serve all the students. And that means that you need to be very accessible to everyone in the community. It means that you have to go places you normally would not go and go to places where you would be uncomfortable and talk to people and listen to what they have to say. It's very disrespectful for people to be rolling their eyes when it is their district and we are serving them and the students.
Thank you very much. This question would have gone to Mrs. Watson and Mrs. Brown for 75 seconds. I'm going to ask the question, give it to Ms. Brown first, and then Ms. Watson give it to Brown and then Watson first. It's 75 seconds apiece. How do you feel about the schools working together with community organizations, and do you have ideas for cooperation?
I actually do have ideas for cooperation. I think it is a good idea to work with community organizations. I think one of the ways that we could increase the achievement of some of our students is to actually go to those organizations that they are already working with. For example, to go to the churches and say, we need some mentors, we need some individuals that will come to the school. Also to work with retired teachers who have the experience and the knowledge, for example, to mentor some of our less experienced teachers as well, and also to come in the classroom and help those classes that need additional assistance that's not provided with teacher assistants and the teacher.
Thank you very much. Ms. Watson?
I think it's essential to work with the community. If we plan to do the things that we have outlined, close achievement gap, increase teacher salaries, all students becoming proficient, it is absolutely essential that we do that. I do have some ideas on closing, how we can do that. I think that our community needs to come together in the idea and notion that these different organizations, like for our board member, there are many events that go on in the community, like, say, the NAACP meeting. You may not be an NAACP member, but you can go to the NAACP meeting to see what's going on in the community. The Greek festival, the Chinese events, the Asian events, I should say. There are things that go on that we don't know about because all that is our community, and we're responsible for knowing the community on this board. And so I think it's absolutely essential, if we plan to grow and do the things that we say we're going to do, that we partner with the different communities.
Thank you, Ms. Watson. Ms. Dazzy, 40 seconds.
So it's a must-do, right? So we can't have, we can have the greatest students and schools, but if we don't have our community engagement, we don't have a full picture. And so some of the ideas I have are around Hill Center teachers coming in and doing training for teachers in our schools, which would be so helpful. We have that resource right in the area. We're lucky to have them. I think we need to look at the whole child. So how do we support things like housing and food and nutrition, working with groups like Table and Porch and the Family Success Alliance and Blue Ribbon Mentor Advocacy, et cetera.
Thank you very much. Mr. Gardo.
Thank you for the question. I'm the servant leader that everybody likes to keep on their boards forever. So this is a great question for me. First of all, I think that we should be partnering more with organizations like the American Red Cross, not just for blood drives, but for installing fire detectors, but for doing but for doing the shelter service. We can have kids step up and help with that as community service. We can also use organizations like the town of Chapel Hill. Let the kids understand exactly who's working in the town. I mean, there's just so much information that could be shared with with the kids through other community organizations. I fully support it.
Thank you very much. And I apologize for seeming to cut you off. Mr. Heinrich.
I think that we're very fortunate that we have an active community here with a lot of organizations that care very deeply for our students and for our children. I think that the board can take a leadership position in formulating almost a board of boards. Almost all of these community organizations have a board of their own that is responsible for that executive leadership. I would like to see our board work with those boards to put together ideas together where we can partner from the schools at the executive level and the organizations from the executive level to do things meaningful together.
Thank you very much. That's it. Yes.
This
This your 30-second or
You're
your
done.
15?
I was going to ask for 30 seconds, and I believe we're done if I counted right.
Yes, go ahead.
So I believe it's very important that the schools partner with organizations within the community, particularly to ensure that we provide adequate support for our most at-risk and fragile students and their families. We often see kids come to school that have inadequate housing, significant needs in family and psychological counseling, and we need to work with organizations to bring those organizations into the school and see that these students are cared for outside of school so that they can come to school prepared to learn and achieve.
Thank you very much. The next question goes to Ms. Samuels, Mr. Saucy, 75 seconds apiece. Climate change may continue to produce severe weather that forces school closures. When it comes to school calendars and makeup days, what things did the board do to address calendar fixes for this school year that you agree with, and what would you do differently for the future?
I think with our ever-changing environment, it's a struggle to make the decisions that we need to make to keep students in school and deal with the weather. I think that anything that the school district does, it needs to focus on instructional time and quality instructional time if we're making up hours. We are unfortunately stymied by the fact that we don't have local control over the calendar, which is unfortunate. We should keep advocating for that, and hopefully one day we'll get that, along with more money from the state. The Saturday school was was not popular across the district. For some it was, for others it wasn't. Memorial Day makeup has also been unpopular. Looking at, the board is reviewing the policy or attempting to make some changes. I think looking at adding some minutes onto the day, looking at the bus plan on snow days, but making sure that everything we do revolves around instructional time.
Thank you, Mr. Saucy.
So I think the board, as mentioned, is very hamstrung by what it can do, given the calendar that we're given from the state, and we need advocacy from everybody else in the room and online or on the radio to advocate to change that. Given that the board has put in place a calendar and plans for this year that I think will go a long way towards being transparent with the community, so the community understands in advance what we plan to do and the priorities that we've placed on how we will do makeup days, and we need to continue to do that in the future. I think that Saturday schools and schools on Memorial Day are unfortunate, but we do have to make up time, and I do believe that, and I know in fact, that those can be quality instructional days for students, and if we do use those days, we need to ensure that they are quality instructional days. I think we additionally need to look at our transportation plan to see if there's something that we can do to get kids to schools on days after the weather event, when the roads aren't completely clear, but are clear enough to get most, if not everybody, to school.
Thank you. Ms. Streeter, 40 seconds.
Thank you. While it isn't a favorable option for students, I do agree with the speakers that we do have laws that we have to work within. I believe that we can make the education and the instruction quality on those days that we do have to actually make up. The district has front-loaded optional teacher work days and inclement weather days, such that if we do not have to use them, then we're actually making up the time in advance of true inclement weather days that may come later in the winter or in the spring. And hopefully that will help. Each year we have to make adjustments, and I will always continue to advocate for local control.
Thank you very much. Ms. Watson, 40 seconds.
40 seconds. Saturday days, I don't think that they're efficient or effective. And I have been thinking about this weather, because last year was a very unique situation. But if we would take the teacher work days and put more teacher work days on the second semester, which is the time that we're likely to have inclement weather, we can cover those days, those snow days or rainy days or what have you. So I think that just putting it on the back end would be more, putting more in the second semester than you do the first would be more adequate for me.
Thank you very much. Ms. Brown.
I think that we should front-load the days in the front as much as we can with the required time that's controlled by the state with the calendar, so that when we get to those winter days and then when we get to the spring, we already have a set of days that we have banked so that the students and the teachers can stay home. Also, when the weather is bad. Also, additionally, we need to look at our bus routes to see where we can have people safely walk, catch the bus, and have school if the roads are safe enough for our teachers to come to school and teach our students.
Thank you very much. The next question goes to Ms. Dazi.
Could I use my other second 15 seconds?
Yes.
Yeah, I think we need to be candid with parents here. Very simply, let's tell parents how many days we've baked into the calendar for weather. And if we have more snow days, how are we going to deal with that? Let parents know up front, we're going to extend the school year. Let's not have Saturday school. Nobody likes that. But we can be candid. We can be honest.
Mr. Heinrich. Next question goes to Ms. Dazi. Mr. Gardeau for 75 seconds. We currently do not have school resource officers in elementary school. What is your position on eliminating them in middle school as well, and using that funding to improve resources and supports available to students? Ms. Dazi.
Well, I'm happy with the work that the district has done on creating the memorandum of understanding that outlines the responsibilities of the SROs and outlines training required. One of the challenges is making sure that the presence of these people in the schools does not lead to increased criminalization of children's behavior. And what we've seen in the district is we have disproportionate discipline for children of color, and I think the district has done good work to address that, and will continue to.
Thank you. Mr. Gardeau.
I think along with the SROs, there's several other positions that we need to be looking at to see if we can reallocate resources for better use in the district. One would be assistant principals. Administrative assistants for assistant principals. And in terms of the SROs specifically, I'd love to have a conversation at the board level with Chris Blue, who's the chief of police, to find out exactly how effective he thinks these positions have been and what additional training he thinks he needs to give his officers to keep them on the job.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Heinrich, 40
Yeah.
seconds.
My brother is a detective in Raleigh, and we often talk about resources like police officers in various locations. And it's like insurance. You put a police officer somewhere, it's very hard to remove them, because if you do and something happens, that would be a horrible situation for everybody. I think that this is an example where the board could really reach into the community deeply and ask the community, do we need SROs in these schools? And if the whole community comes together and says, no, we don't, we can use those resources elsewhere, then we have the buy-in from the community to do that. Otherwise, we have insurance to make sure that our students are safe.
Thank you. Ms. Samuels.
Thank you. I think we need to make sure we're using community policing principles, that when we're talking about student discipline, we're not criminalizing student actions, and think about some of the promising practices behind, intent behind student actions, restorative justice models when students do have issues. I think we talked at the community forum when it comes to the achievement gap about cards and protocols and utilizing coaching. We can do the same thing when it comes to discipline issues. We have a director of AVID and equity that is well-versed in these issues, that can work with staff, team issues that have happened.
Thank you very much. Mr. Saucy, 40 seconds.
So I believe that SROs can perform a valuable service in our middle schools, and I think that we also need to ensure that the SROs are adequately trained and that they treat all students in the school equitably, and that we look at all incidents of student SRO interactions to ensure that that happens, and where it doesn't, correct the inequities.
Thank you. The next question will go to Ms. Streeter and Ms. Watson for 75 seconds.
Can I take 15 seconds?
Yes.
Okay. I want to respond to this. I do not think SROs should be in elementary school. We have a proven track record that the police is not fair to the black and brown children. And so I would not have students be introduced to negative environment at such an early age.
Thank you very much.
15 seconds.
Yes.
I do believe that the memorandum of understanding is binding. The police departments that serve us come to us as a professional entity, and they have training expectations that we can't provide. I would like to see the district continue to nurture opportunities for SROs to be mentors to our students.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. The next question goes back to Ms. Streeter, Ms. Watson for 75 seconds apiece. Especially given that our facilities are inadequate for students with disabilities, what are your thoughts on the 2016 bond and the current capital plan for schools?
I do support the bond to help improve our campuses. The district has specifically been very concerned with our older campuses, so it is our intent to put major emphasis on our older campuses. The proposed funding of the bond will in no way support all of the needs that our architectural firm has determined for us, but we have been very thoughtful in prioritizing those needs, specifically to services and facilities for children with disabilities. There can be an opportunity for us to be thoughtful to provide an expansion of those spaces. We are currently looking at whether whether Lincoln Center could be used as a consolidated pre-kindergarten center. That could be an opportunity for us to have improved school-based facilities for children with disabilities. But the work continues around determining how best to use that facility. So I look forward to those discussions.
Thank you very much. Ms. Watson.
I'm still out. The verdict for me is still out on whether or not I would support the bond. But because I think that the board need to really just ask the commissioners for more money. I'm not sure I would actually support the bond. I do know that we have these old buildings, and these older buildings have been here for a long time, and the money, so we should have had expectation that we were going to have things fall, be replaced. And so I'm just really concerned whether or not, what happened that we did not allocate any funding for the repairs necessary for our schools. So I'm not sure that I would support the bond.
Thank you very much. Mr. Brown, 40 seconds.
I support the bond, and I think that the current metrics, the way the current board determined what they needed to repair and renovate was a good one, but also it needs to be extended. I think the board currently now needs to develop a plan to maintain all of the buildings. Because if we don't have a plan to maintain all of the buildings, we need to be acknowledge that we need another $220 million to the community. We need to acknowledge that we need to have a plan to develop and to maintain those facilities before we build another school.
Thank you very much. Ms. Darcy.
I strongly support the bond. I wish there was more money in it for the schools. If we look at where we have our students and the changes that have happened to building codes since we built some of these buildings starting in the 1950s, some buildings are not even ADA compliant. Our teachers, our students are having to learn in environments that are, potentially unsafe in some instances. And so I would support the bond strongly.
Thank you very much. Mr. Gardeau.
I support the bond. However, I think that it's a drop in the bucket. I don't believe that we've been doing maintenance correctly for quite some time. We've made some poor decisions. Anyone who owns a home knows that the longer you wait, the more it costs, and that's what's happening to our schools. I think we need to know before we support another bond, which is inevitable in the case of our schools, that we need to know what the big number is and figure out how to support that. That's a question that I look forward to solving and being part of the rationale for on the board.
Thank you, sir. I'm sorry. This question was submitted from the audience and goes first to Mr. Heinrich and then Ms. Samuels for 75 seconds. Why was there no information about this form on the district and I can't read that word, and the school's website? There was no information about the regular Sunday phone or email messages from the school. Sorry about that. Would you like me to read that again, or are you okay?
No, I got that, yeah. Unfortunately, I can't answer that question. But I'm ashamed to learn that it was not publicized better. I think that in all cases we have an opportunity here to really change the level of transparency around not just how decisions are made, but how candidates at the board feel. And I think that in addition to transparency, we need to continue to push ideas like outreach. Require that. Set up some metrics. Let's measure and see which groups are underrepresented at our school board meetings. Having a website, having things posted on the web is not reaching all of our constituents. I think that we need to go beyond that. That's helpful. But if we're really to reach our entire community, we need to be out in the community.
Thank you. And I should apologize. We should give ourselves a hand. We actually finished our complete prepared questions 45 minutes in advance. So we should, I guess we're a model for the other televised debates, huh? So I apologize to also the person who sent this. I kind of butchered that question. With that being said, we're going to go to the next person, Ms. Samuels. Yes.
I am disappointed to hear that. As a former PTA council president, you hope that, and someone that has organized this forum in past years, you hope that the information can get out to everybody and that it can be there. I will say sometimes that in many cases, it's the PTA, NAACP, SNAC, our volunteer organizations, they do the best they can. They did a monumental job getting the information out about this. It was in the PTA blast that did go out. I think that the district and their media staff should pay close attention to what's going on with each of the PTAs and out in their email blasts. I know that they try. They need to do a better job of that, especially in a forum that includes so many of our parents, so many of our groups, and it's good that some of the information did get out and so many people are with us tonight. And hopefully, we can then take the recording of this and the district can post it on the website. They can send out the link. They can tell people where to get the information. And I'm happy to talk to anyone individually that has missed the forum tonight.
Thank you very much, Mr. Saucy.
So I guess while it's disappointing that this may not have been on the district website, school communications are often put on the websites of the individual schools, both information about when email blasts will come out, phone calls and whatnot, and that's typically up to individual schools. I agree, however, that we do need to do a better job of ensuring communication with everybody in the community, with all of the community, and that everybody's getting the message about meetings like this and other meetings and what's going on in schools.
Thank you very much. Ms. Streeter.
Thank you for the question. As you know, we're a public school district. We are a local education agency, and by law, we cannot promote the election process. Agencies that are not sponsored by the school district, such as PTAs, the NAACP, SNAC, are welcome to advocate with their stakeholders and promote the event. It's unfortunate that all of our stakeholders were not aware of the forums, but I do know that school PTAs were very much involved in announcing it to their school communities. Mine specifically, the information went out in the backpacks, and I was the only parent to attend.
Thank you. Ms. Watson.
Well, I know that the school cannot advertise all the events in the that transpire in our community. However, the PTA, SNAC, NAACP have done a great job in getting the information out to the community. So I think it was a proper process that transpired.
Thank you
15
very
seconds.
much. Yes.
I would like to make sure that everyone is aware that when there is information that should be shared with all of the candidates, the district is responsible for providing that information to all of the candidates. And
Thank you very much. Okay, a second question from the audience. African-American males, and I'm sorry, at this point, we're going to still keep the same rotation, so this question will go to Ms. Braun. African-American males are suspended at a rate higher than other students. What policies and resources would you implement to reduce this?
Well, the first thing is to acknowledge that it is a great problem in the district and that we need to eliminate it. One of the policies that we need to implement is to have more bias and implicit bias training. I think when you look at the district statistics, you don't see as much discipline with regards to African-American males, disparate discipline as you do with African-American males from 0 to 3, because they're small. You know, they're cute. And then as they grow larger and larger, people become fearful. And then you have disparate discipline. You have to have an expectation that all children can learn. And when you put a child out of the classroom, then you're going to have more discipline problems. I think there needs to be training with regards to teacher management of the classroom. Because when you have strong teacher management, there are no problems with discipline.
Thank you very much, Ms. Darcy.
I'm glad that this is a topic that has risen to the conversation lately. I think part of the challenge with the achievement gap is we've focused specifically on instruction issues and not looked holistically at the problem, and this is one of them. What I'd like to see is more training, so helping people understand where the implicit biases might be, and also understanding where there are opportunities for restorative justice type scenarios where folks can have conversations that don't escalate into punitive measures against students. Certainly, there are situations where, a student may become a risk to other students or faculty or staff that have to be addressed, but I think awareness is important in training.
Thank you. And Mr. Godot, 40 seconds.
Thank you so much for the question. I believe that we have to do a lot more training with teachers, not just in understanding the implicit biases that they may have and how to teach without those biases, and how to discipline without those biases. But also, we don't have any training at present in the district for teachers to be able to properly assess and communicate with Generation X students, which they all are. That kind of training is so important so that the teachers are on the same communication level. Whenever I hear someone use a phrase like, well, my grandfather's teachers didn't have to do such and such and such, drives me insane. We're not training the teachers properly to communicate with the students that they have.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mr. Heinrich, 40 seconds.
Yeah, what are we telling our students when we suspend them? We're telling them that what you did is so bad that you don't deserve to learn. You don't deserve to be in the schools. That should be reserved only for the most egregious actions that threaten the safety of students or the faculty. I think that training for bias training or implicit bias training is useful, but I think that we need to go further. We need leaders in our schools that understand implicit bias at a higher level. We need people that our teachers can go to for guidance that are part of the schools. We need these leaders because if we don't, well, I'm done.
Thank you very much. Our third question from the audience: what do you think of Common Core and its implementation? 75-75 and then 40-40-40. I'm sorry, Ms. Samuels. I'm giving the time. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Thank you.
75.
I think Common Core is a set of guidelines that we can use to structure what we do with our lesson planning, what we look at as far as what we can provide to students through teaching. I think that the way Common Core was implemented was not necessarily as transparent and useful to families as it needed to be. My son was in the transition in 6th grade as we were transitioning the math. It was very, very difficult. There was a big meeting at Hill-Carrboro High School in the library with many, many parents and lots of confusion. I think we have since learned a lot from them. We know that teachers are utilizing it. I think we can have a lot of feedback from our teachers, from our administrators going forward. We can course correct what hasn't worked, but as long as the focus is on high expectations for students and using that as a guideline for the work that we're doing, I think that the Common Core can work.
Thank you very much, Mr. Salsa.
Thank you. I believe that it's important for the community to understand that the Common Core is a set of standards and guidelines, not a curriculum that's being forced upon us, but a set of standards and guidelines that offers us a platform for increasing the rigor of education for all students at all levels in K through 12. I believe in Common Core and the goals that it hopes to achieve. And while I think that the implementation of Common Core has been rocky at times, I think that it has helped to guide us in the development of a better, stronger, more rigorous, comprehensive K through 12 curriculum that will be available throughout the district so that we ensure adequate rigor for all students in all schools, no matter which school they're going to, and that this can be a useful tool in helping to close the achievement gap.
Thank you very much. Ms. Streeter.
Yes. I do believe that the Common Core is a set of standards or guidelines that can drive an increase in rigor among our students. The intent is to try to nationally norm what we teach students and what we expect them to know when they exit K-12 education. I know that it created some problems in terms of the rollout of the increased standards and expectations. I do believe that the district has to continue to remain steadfast, that we are about increasing rigor for our children and our teachers.
Thank you very much. Ms. Watson?
I'm still out, as I've stated before. It's not that I'm not, it's not that I'm totally against Common Core. There's some key elements that I am not, that I don't fully understand. I have not put the thoughts together yet on it. But North Carolina in the past have always had a set of standards and guidelines. They have made us the district that we are today. And so for that reason, when I take a look at some of the things in Common Core, I don't see where it benefits a lot of African-American, Latino children, as what people have stated to be expected.
Thank you very much. Ms. Brown?
As everyone said, the Common Core is a group of standards. They're not curriculum. I think it is something that you could look to set our curriculum for. I think that they need to be, massaged a little bit, and I think part of the implementation problem, again, was the communication on how they're going to work for our students. And so, going forward in the future, we have to make sure that the Common Core standards that are in place, that we're meeting those standards, but they also fit what we need to do for our students.
Thank you very much.
15 seconds?
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Whatever the core standard, engaged and confident teachers are the key to learning for our children. And recruiting and retaining the best teachers is especially in math and science and technology, that's so core to our needs as parents developing our children's futures.
Thank you very much. A third question from the audience. Maybe it's our fourth question. Traditionally, public schools provided good jobs with benefits that serve the schools. Many of these jobs in the school district have been outsourced. These outsourced jobs have low pay and few benefits. Do you support or oppose this outsourcing? I believe I'm going to start with Ms. Dazi.
That's a tough question. Certainly, equity means care for everybody in our community, and so we have to be responsible when we make these decisions. As a school board, though, the primary consideration really has to be around instruction for the students, and so I would say one of the things that we ought to do is to look at where we're outsourcing and how we influence those organizations to give living wages and make sure they're treating those employees as equitably as we might in the district.
At the board and policy level, what we're really talking about is the contract that we make with any organization, whether it's an employee or with an outsourced organization of other employees. We need to make sure that we're asking for fair and equitable wages as well as benefits for those people in the contracts. Make sure that we hold the provider feet to the fire.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Hammond. 40 seconds.
So if we think about why we outsource, oftentimes it's to save money. And let's face it, the funding from the state has been declining. We're strapped as a school system, and we need to look at creative ways to save money. But we need to pay our employees a living wage, and that includes the employees of outsourcers. An outsourcer might be able to do something less costly because they have a larger economy of scale, but that doesn't mean that they do that on the backs of the people that do the work in our schools.
Wow. You're cutting into his time there for the next one.
That's fine. We want to make sure that any work we do with any organization is paying a living wage. Orange County has a very specific living wage. We want to ensure that any work we do that is contracted out, that people are working towards that goal and that they can pay that goal, that they can pay that. It's important that as school board, our focus is on the instruction of our students, but also many of the staff that work for our school district also have children that go to this district or go to other school districts. And we know what's good for children is that their parents have a good job with good benefits, a living wage, and that they can support their children. We must also keep that in mind.
Thank you, Mr. Saucy.
So I think that the board and the district need to focus on doing the things that have the greatest direct impact on education, and other things can be handed over to other organizations to handle, other companies and organizations to handle. That said, I agree that we need to ensure that contractors are paid a living wage. The board has addressed this, has discussed this in recent meetings, and is planning to not only institute a living wage for its employees, but to ensure that we hold contractors to the living wage standard as well.
Thank you, sir. Next question goes to Ms. Streeter.
Can I take my 15 minutes? I mean, not 15 minutes.
15 minutes. The timekeeper over there.
I took my 15 seconds. Okay, on the living wage, that's very crucial. But when we have a contract, I think it would also be good to make sure that we can revisit that contract before the year, and we have a set of standards and guidelines of our own that they have to maintain.
Thank you very much. Next question will go to Ms. Streeter, Ms. Watson for 75 seconds apiece, and then we'll come back this way. Given the General Assembly's failure to give teachers meaningful salary increases, what should the district do to attract and retain the best teachers?
Thank you for the question. It has been a struggle for several years for teachers to get the well-deserved raises and even minimum salaries that they deserve. I personally continue to advocate at the state level with neighboring school boards around getting our legislators to be more thoughtful and consider our teachers to be a profession and worthy of decent salaries and raises. In terms of recruiting effective teachers, the district has always been in the business of recruiting and hiring highly qualified teachers. What we can do as a district is let the public and let areas know where we recruit from that we're about rigor, we're about equity, and we are about serving all children where they are, but also growing them. And if we can get that message out, I see us recruiting and retaining top-notch teachers because they see that this is what we believe in and it aligns with what they believe in. We have to believe that we can do this work, but we also have to teachers who are considering us have to also see that in us.
Thank you very much. Ms. Watson.
I think that we need to spend more time going to the legislators, the commissioners, and trying to get teachers higher salaries. And when we're dealing with the teacher salary, they don't need incentive. They need the money in order to do that. The other component is that I think that sometimes we have opportunities to be on committees and know where things are going and what people are thinking before it actually get to us, and see we can put our 2 cents in, if you will, so that we have a place on the board, on one of those committees to say, this is impacting our school. Don't wait until we actually need the money to go to our legislators or to our commissioner. It's something that we need to learn to work on during the full course of the year.
Very much. Ms. Brown, 40 seconds.
The first thing we need to do is to continue to treat teachers as professionals. They are the only group, other than parents, that impact the lives of students in such a phenomenal way. And so we also need to create environments that are supportive. We also need to increase the salaries as best we can and advocate for the increase of resources to teachers. We seem to be the only nation that does not value or do not value teachers. And we need to change that culture, and we can start right here in Chapel Hill-Carrboro.
Thank you. Ms. Dodson.
I would like to see us work on developing local pipelines, partnerships with local universities who have teaching institutions, and really working to identify some of our top performers in our high schools and seeing how we support them through the teaching college process and maybe being able to bring them back locally. As well, professional development will be very important for teachers, and I like the Project Advance and that it gives teachers some control over their career. So for teachers who want to become experts in the classroom, there's an opportunity to do that. For teachers who want leadership positions outside of the classroom, there's an opportunity for that. So I think having teachers feel empowered and owning their careers is important.
Thank you. Mr. Gardo, 40 seconds.
I'm believe that Project Advance gives us an opportunity, if we put it into action, to understand what the number is. And Project Advance isn't about changing the teacher's total salary. It's about changing the teacher's supplemental income that's provided by the district. How far off are we? Right? So we don't, no one knows that number. We all talk about the 1,000 teachers that left this year and 1,200 that are thinking of quitting the profession altogether. We need to know what the number is, because for them it's about money. The second thing is that we need to be working more positively with our town council, because there are cities like Asheville, and I'll use my 15 seconds if I can.
I don't think we can do that.
Okay. I wanted to talk about the Asheville solution.
When we ask another question, you come right back to Asheville, okay?
Yes, sir.
All right. Lost my train of thought there. Mr. Heinrich, go ahead.
So my uncle was a career English teacher in South Korea, one of the most revered professions there. And when I tell him, or I'm actually embarrassed to tell him what teachers make in this country, I'm embarrassed to tell him how we treat our teachers or what we think of them as a country. I think that we struggle to pay a living wage so that teachers can live in our communities and make our communities stronger. They have to live somewhere else. That's a problem that we need to advocate for with the state. But in addition to that, we need to look at the culture in the schools. Are teachers supported? Do they feel like they have the tools and resources? Do they feel valued by the administration for what they do?
Thank you. I actually messed up. I should have stopped it at Mr. Gordeau and gave Mr. Heinrich this new question. So I'm going to give Heinrich this same question, and we're going to go forward. So the new question is, please assign a letter grade to the elementary school education that students in the district are receiving, and explain your answer. 75 seconds.
Oh, is that for me?
I'm gonna let you.
Oh, okay.
I can let you go last. Would you like to say it again? Are you okay?
Yeah, could you repeat it?
Yes. Please assign a letter grade to the elementary school education that students in this district are receiving, and explain your answer.
I would say that it's a B or a B minus. I think that it's better than the education that we get in high school. I think that's because at the elementary school level, students are less differentiated. There's no AP. There's no high honor type classes. They are different. But I also think that there's some fundamental things that we could do differently in a lot of our elementary schools. There's issues of safety in them. We're missing emergency exits in some of them. These are some of our oldest schools, and I think that when we set our kids off on their educational journey and we take them to facilities that, frankly, don't look like they're welcoming or don't have the resources that are welcoming, I think that says something to our students that we don't want to be saying to them.
Thank you. Ms. Samuels.
I would assign B minus C. And I think for a couple of reasons. I think that whatever we can do, whatever scaffolding, whatever funds we need to get everyone reading on grade level. We know if students aren't reading on grade level by third grade, we've made everything much more difficult. Students need to be reading at grade level. They need to have a year's worth of growth, more if it is required. Students with disabilities, we've just had several questions about students with disabilities going unidentified, twice exceptional students, students who may not have an IEP or a 504. That's the reason why I would assign that letter grade.
Thank you very much, Mr. Saucy.
So we were asked this question at a forum the other night, and I gave the entire district a C, and I'll give the elementary schools a C as well. I think we're doing a good, average-ish job of delivering education to our students. Some better than others, but because we still have an achievement gap, and we still see kids coming through elementary schools where they're not at goal, going through and finishing schools. I think until we've closed that gap, we don't get a better grade than a C.
Thank you. Ms. Streeter?
I'd give the elementary schools a B for that, and for that, these are the reasons that I would give a B. They're related to inclusiveness of all children, inclusiveness of the staff. I know that we do have wonderful school settings where our principals do support all of the teachers, but I am concerned that the school leaders are not engaging all of the teachers around mentoring and coaching and supporting them, and that impacts how well they're able to do their jobs in the classroom.
Watson?
I'm going to give the elementary school a C- for this reason. I think for the massive, I will give the elementary school an A+. It has great programs. The teachers are great. I think I've been to four of the schools, different schools in Chapel Hill as it relates to following my children. But when it comes down to students that can't read, do math, kids with IEPs, 504, the growth for those kids are not good. We don't have a good track record for that. For that reason, I will give this elementary school a C-. A- for the massive, C- for the others.
Thank you very much. The next question from the audience is a yes or no question. Mabane Rash is doing a great job of journalism covering a broad view of North Carolina challenges and new ideas in K through 12 public education. Do you read her website, ednc.org, on a regular basis or weekly basis? Let me repeat that question. Okay, hold on. All right.
Please.
Whoever wrote this, I apologize. All right, here we go. One more time. Yes or no? Mabane Rash is doing a great job of journalism, covering a broad range of North Carolina challenges and new ideas in K through 12 public school education. Do you read her website, ednc.org, on a regular weekly basis?
I read her tweets on a weekly basis. But now I will read her blog.
Okay, thank you. She'll appreciate that. Ms.
Yes.
Dazzi.
I do.
Mr. Gardeau.
No, I don't, but I will now.
Mr. Heinrich.
I do not read it on a weekly basis, but I will take that to heart.
Okay, thank you. And Ms. Samuels.
I'm with Joel on that one. Tweets, but I will be reading it now.
All right, thank you. And so we're going to start with David Saucy. How would you handle situations where administration does not want to share public data with the board?
Sorry, repeat that, please. I didn't hear the
I'm
end
gonna
of it.
slow down here. We still have plenty of time, guys. You can still have more questions. How would you handle situations where the administration does not want to share public data with the board?
So I'm not aware.
Read it the third time.
Yeah, no,
Let's do it. You ready?
I'm sorry, I'm thinking about that for a minute because I'm not aware of situations where the
I read it the
administration.
third time, they won't start calculating your time. So why don't I read it a third time? How would you handle situations where the administration does not want to share public data with the board?
So I'm not aware of any situations where the administration has not shared public data with the board.
Fair enough.
That said, it sounds like somebody thinks they haven't. That said, we do, as a board, direct the staff to share information, public information, and in some cases, private information, all the information that we need that is available to address an issue or answer a question at hand, and we'll continue to do that.
Thank you. Ms. Streeter.
I'm not aware of a situation where the board refuses to make public data that it can do by law. When we look at student achievement data, there are some elements of it that we cannot share publicly. For instance, when a subgroup is small enough such that the identity of the child could be apparent, in those cases, by law, we cannot. But I am assured and will continue to advocate for our principals, ensuring that he or she knows the children as well as the teachers who serve the children, so that efforts can be made to improve instruction or whatever other need is necessary to support the child.
Thank you. Ms. Watson, 40 seconds.
I don't need 40 seconds on this one. Can I answer another one? Can I add it to
No.
it? Okay. I agree with Anita, and I actually do not know any circumstances.
Thank you.
I'm not aware of any circumstances, but I think people need to understand that sometimes when the information is put out there, it's not that understandable. And so I think one of the things the board and the administration needs to do is to make the information more understandable, so everyone can access the information.
If there is a scenario where the administration is not sharing data with the board, I think the board needs to act. The board has direct responsibility for the superintendent. The superintendent has to be accountable to the board, and that is the direct connection that the board controls.
Okay, thank you. This question will go to Mr. Gardeau. Currently, the district provides salary supplements based upon years of experience. Would you support keeping that and using advance, they may mean Project Advance, using advance as an additional supplement or replace the current salary supplement system?
I support replacing the current salary supplement system so long as it's an equitable replacement with Project Advance. I've had a long conversation with Dr. Forcello about this, and Project Advance is actually supported at this point by the state legislature, and it's potentially a pilot program for the whole state. So we have an opportunity to take a leadership position with this. However, it can't be at the expense of teachers' salaries where somebody goes negative. So those are the things that I'm concerned about. However, I think that Project Advance requires feedback loops with parents and students to be truly effective, and it's not currently written into the plan as such.
Thank you very much, Mr. Heinrich.
So the traditional way that the teachers are paid or get raises in our system is through tenure or years of service. So if a teacher has 20 years of service, it may be 25 when they get their next pay bump based on the traditional system. I think it's highly unfair to take that system away from teachers that have been in our system for decades. Having said that, I do like Project Advance, and I think that it offers either an alternative that teachers may choose, or perhaps we want to do that for new teachers coming in. But I do not feel that we should take away or change a system that teachers have spent decades investing their time, their tenure into, and expect a certain reward to come back for that.
Thank you very much. Ms. Samuels, 40 seconds.
I think Project Advance as a concept is something that the district is working very hard on, and as with a focus on professional development. I think salaries for our teachers are too low. I think we need to work with our county commissioners. We know the funding's not going to come from the state. We know that they're going to put in as many structures as possible to make it difficult to pay teachers a very good salary to keep them where they are. And so we need to work locally to ensure that we can provide those salaries that are competitive and that teachers can live on and stay in the district for.
Thank you very much. Excuse me, Mr. Saucy.
So I think that Project Advance is a great plan to offer better career growth and development paths for our teachers, and to recognize and reward them for their achievement along that career path. So I believe that using local funds to fund Project Advance is a good idea. I also know that within Project Advance and the implementation of it, there is a plan to hold teachers who don't want to move into the Project Advance scheme, to hold them close, so they will be treated equitably as they finish out as they work the rest of their way through their careers.
Thank you. Ms. Streeter.
Thank you. I do believe that it is a great model that provides teachers the opportunity to grow professionally and be compensated for that growth. Part of that growth is to demonstrate student growth and achievement. We have been working within a system that simply advances and provides compensation for teachers based on their time served in the district. And I believe that has merit, but I also think it's equally, if not more important, for teachers to be recognized and compensated when they do right by children. I also believe that we have a big task ahead of us to communicate this and make sure everyone is on board.
Thank you very much. Next question goes to Ms. Watson. Currently, the elementary schools are not equivalent in terms of social economic status. Social economic status of students, i.e. free and reduced lunch, and this disparity seems to be worsening. How would each of you feel about this, and what steps would you take to alleviate this situation?
Could you repeat
Could you repeat the question?
I want to say that. All right. Here we go. All right. 1, 2, 3. Currently, the elementary schools are not equivalent in terms of social economic status of students.
They are not what?
I'm going to repeat it again. Currently, the elementary schools are not equivalent in terms of social economic status of students, i.e., this person put in parentheses, free and reduced lunches. And this disparity seems to be worsening. The question, how would each of you feel about this, and what steps would you take to alleviate this situation?
Well, I get the really hard question, right? So I think it's not all a school board issue. The one thing we, in this town, we still struggle with is providing a living wage. And so if free and reduced lunch will always be here until we actually provide our, a living wage. We actually are dealing with housing issues. We do not have affordable housing in this town. So I think that we will always have free and reduced lunch, and it will grow in high school and middle school.
Okay, thank you very much. Ms. Brown?
If the question is, do we want to have more diverse schools, then that means that we're going to have to maybe look at redistricting. And then again, we've also had these discussions about we want our schools to be walkable and bikeable. And so how do you meet both of those concerns at the same time? I think one of the first things you do is create a culture of excellence. So it really doesn't matter how much money you have, but how hard are you willing to work, and how invested is the community in seeing those children achieve? And that's the first thing. It doesn't matter how you get your lunch paid, but are you invested in ensuring that those children are learning, because they're our children? I think too many times we look at poverty as a determinant of how successful you will be, and not look at how hard you work and how bright you are.
Thank you very much. Ms. Darcy, 40 seconds.
I'd say if it's true that the disparity is worsening, we need to definitely review the distribution among the schools. I know with the recent redistricting, that was one of the primary criteria that was considered in the way that the students were allocated. We certainly also want to make sure that schools are appropriately resourced, no matter, I think you had a good quote of where they get their lunch paid from, and that is the underlying foundation of education should be strong at all of our schools.
Thank you, Mr. Gardo.
And I'd like to know more about the statistic that's being quoted here, because I've heard that free and reduced price lunch head counts were going down in some schools and remaining about the same in other schools. I don't know why they're going down, or I don't know why they're staying the same, and he's actually making the point, or whoever gave you the question is making the point that they're going up. It's a question that's hard to answer unless you know the statistical background behind it.
Yeah, I think that the way the question was posed that I interpret is that this is a problem that's bigger than the board, but I think that the board can really take a leadership position around this, because no leadership position in our local government touches our children as much as the Board of Education. So I think that the board should take a leadership position in working with the town council, in working with the county commissioners to understand if our free and reduced lunch percentages are going up, we need to understand why. And if our school board may not be able to address these issues, but they need to bring them to the attention of the county commissioner and our town councils to understand how we can work together to address them.
Thank you very much. I think that was it. All right, we'll go to the next question. All right, so take a deep breath. This is a big one, Samuel. All right, and this is going to be our last question for the evening. I asked the current board member about the new policy of asking all visitors to scan the driver license. to go into the school, something that deters immigrant parents from even making an appointment with teachers or counselors. It is also very unwelcoming and unwelcome surprise for parents when they encounter it. The board member said they didn't ask us. Question, do you think this is a policy issue the board could/should address? And it is 8:58, so we'll go 30 seconds apiece, maybe. That's just unfair to ask a big question. Go ahead.
Why not? Why not? No, because it's an important question. It's a good one. And IDs, unfortunately, have become such a huge controversy in our state, and that creates barriers for children getting service and support they need. So I just want to think about that for a second, that a parent knock into a school because they may not have their ID to get the services they need for their child or get to talk to the teacher. That's just a sad state to be in, to start with. I think...
Got to move on. We're about to run out of broadcast time.
Thank you.
So I think this is a case it's like a case of running into challenges between needing to identify everybody that enters a school to ensure their safety and need to ensure that everybody had access to the school. There may be ways to work on that. They don't have ID, if they're required to have ID to enter the school and don't have one, to have a meeting outside of the classroom in the administrative office areas, for example.
I'm going to end this. It's 8:59, and I want to stop the person when we go off air. I think we're heading off air right now. Thank you very much. Give us a round of applause.